Hey, and welcome to episode 50 of the Cellarcast. Can you believe it? We're nearing up on 52, the big 52. I think I'll do a live stream, like a live episode of the Cellarcast. I think that could be fun. Might do like a call-in thing. Let me know how you guys feel about that. I don't know if this podcast gets enough regular viewership to make that like a successful at all, but it could be fun to just do live and maybe have my friends call in or something like that. In any event, I'm good. I'm enjoying my break right now. I'm kind of getting a little bored, so I'm trying to play a lot of games right now. And I'll talk about that this week and next week and probably the whole month. So I was reviewing the comments from last week, and only kind of really had one actual question. I had to like reread them a couple times because excuse me, you guys like writing long comments, which I don't mind. I really like hearing guys' stories and all that. I enjoy it quite a bit. Losey technically sort of asked two questions. First one is he timestamped this. WTF, please more lore about that. And then I had to go and double check exactly what he was talking about. There was a park. I brought up this park that was by my house one time, called Potawatomi. And there's like a summer camp. My mom always had this thing. She's like, if I don't put you in summer camp, you're gonna spend the entire summer inside on the internet, which I would have done. So she forced me to go to summer camps. And eventually we landed on that theater camp, which I actually really enjoyed. I had a really good time there. But before that, she was like, let me send him to Potawatomi because it's nearby. And I remember like getting picked up one time, or how should I start this off? I also just woke up. I remember, yeah, that camp was not, it might have been a city camp. It was not run very well, more like a shitty camp. I remember one time her boyfriend picked me up. It was a completely different guy, completely different man, picking up this kid who was like 9 or something. And so no questions asked. No questions asked about like, oh, can you prove that you're related? It's just purely based off the word. And I was like, oh. She pointed out to me later how shady that was, and I was like, yeah. Anyway, I just remember this weird thing where, and this is the story that he's asking about. I remember this weird time where I never really talked to anyone because I was just bad at making friends. I didn't have any friends at this point. So these kids like came up to me on the playground that was at the park, and it was something like, I have a really rough memory of how this went, but it was like playing some game or something like that, and I don't know what it was or how it was played, but all I remember was that it kind of ended up with, you know, those like raised platforms that'll be at playgrounds, like, you know, it's just a raised platform or something. That's part of the overall like playground set construction. I remember two kids like holding me down, like pinning me down as I was like face up. My head was hanging off of that one of those platforms, like hanging down, obviously. And then another kid was just strangling me, and that went on for like I don't know how long, but long enough that I had to like scream to like tell them to stop because I couldn't breathe. Well, I guess I could breathe. If I couldn't breathe, I wouldn't be able to scream. But it was like getting there, you know. And then they were just like, oh, and then they just kind of got up and got off and left. And I just kind of like sat up and tried to catch my breath. I was like maybe 8 or 9 when this happened. I don't remember, man. I was a little kid, and I think we were all around the same age. So, yeah, I remember that definitely did not do much to help my what would you call it? Isolation or desire to be isolated from other people. Definitely didn't make me go, wow, people are cool, I should be around them more. Yeah, I didn't start making friends until the very tail end of the 5th grade. So yeah. That's the lore on that time that I almost got choked out at a public park by a bunch of other children. Second sort of question he asked. This is a taster for what's coming up. Theory with the existence of G and Q. This is a Street Fighter lore question. Is that there is a new enemy faction that not much is known about. A little can be seen in Third Strike at the end of Q, I'm assuming Q's ending. Generally in fighting games there's usually some faction related to subjective governments. I think there is an organization to know that agents have letter names. Both G and Q are mysterious characters, but I don't think they're affiliated with any of the known groups. What do you think about that? I don't see them in Neo Shadaloo. He said... You wrote it Chandaloo, but like honestly, Shadaloo is such a silly name. Chandaloo sounds like ooh, Chandaloo sounds like the name of like a country western dance. Like I'm tearing the Chandaloo. Yeah. So. I have no idea. I think it's something that they've like definitely intentionally kept vague. G and Q and what their relation is. That whole like, are they the same person just like at different points in time? Because you know Q is his game is in the future from Street Fighter V. Is it like, are they clones or something? Because there's clones in Street Fighter. It's definitely something they've kept intentionally vague, and with things like that, I'm actually like not super huge into. I don't know. I'm not that big into fan theories. I think some of them are interesting if there's like a lot to go off of. Like I remember in the last like quarter or third of Part 8 of JoJo, there were so many fan theories about where it could go, and what was kind of fun about it was that it did not go in any of those directions. But I still thought, I have a whole thing about like Part 8 of JoJo, about how much I liked the way that it was handled. I want to reread it sometime, but anyway. I'm generally not one for like super hard fan theories about like, I think this is what it's gonna be. Generally, I don't know, I think that if something is kept intentionally vague by the writers, I think maybe this is also because I'm like, I do writing, you know. I am like, I just want to see where they take it. unless it's something where it's like, okay, well this is the only thing that it's ever gonna be. Like, I don't know, like, oh, like I like to write a lot of short stories. I don't say I like to write a lot of short stories. I used to write more. I need to write more in general, but. When I wrote short stories, I like to kind of end them sort of ambiguously. I like to make a lot of elements of them ambiguous so that the reader could sort of paint more of the picture in their own mind. Like, I have an idea of what happened and what's going on, but I like it when the reader is also able to kind of paint something for themselves. So, whether or not they're related to some new faction or something, maybe. I mean, if they're clones or something, then they would have to be cloned by somebody. Or if they're the same person, then G's definitely like some kind of alien or something weird. Or maybe he's just under the delusion that he's an alien. This is what I mean. It's like you can speculate all day about what's going on, because at the end of the day, there's just like zero information about them. I am curious, because you also did in your comment bring up the Oh wait, that's for later. That's for later. Don't worry. There will be a. There will be a. We're gonna talk about that. Yeah, but a lot of you just left kind of some good questions about, or things about Combo Breaker, things about a lot of stuff about MK, and I wanted to bring up. I tried out a bit of Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. And for a game, I only played the arcade mode because I've never been able to like connect. For some reason, I'd have to try it. I tried to play some CVS 2 and Marvel 2 over Fightcade, and it just never worked for some reason. Like the connection would always fail. I would never be able to get into a game, and I don't know what the issue was. So I was just a little too squeamish to because there's only like 5 people in the lobby. And I don't know how many of them speak English. Like, MK, it's one of those that's like, you go into the lobby and a lot of the people there are going to be from like Latin American, Central American countries. So, in the first place, maybe my connections aren't going to be that great. But, so I ended up playing more of the arcade mode and just going through that a bit. Didn't get to beat Motaro. Holy shit. Holy shit. That boss is stupid. But like, I had a good time. I had a really fun time, actually. That's a fun game. I didn't think that I would be super into the I don't know, the way the combos worked or something, but actually, once I kind of understood it, it's pretty interesting, because the game does not have... moves are just designed, and it's so interesting to play this coming from someone who's played a lot of games that for the most part were honestly inspired by like Street Fighter as like a basis of inspiration, whereas Mortal Kombat was a lot of its design just, it almost feels like it's from another planet if you've only played other fighting games, because it's the way that like moves are designed and like the way that they fit into the game is so interesting. I'll try and give you an example to understand what I mean. So like, you don't poke very much in MK3, in MK3. You do like jabs, but that's just kind of like space. I guess that's kind of like poking, but like even that works in a different way. Like you just kind of jab repeatedly and kind of like inch your way around. But characters like neutral work so different because so many characters literally have like full screen teleports that start combos, like almost. So I was playing a lot of Smoke, Cyber Smoke, the robot Smoke, and he has like 3 specials. One of them is invisibility, which I never bothered to use. The other ones are like pretty neat. So one of them is the teleport punch. So he'll literally just teleport away, and then what would you like lift up? he'll fly up from the bottom of the screen right in front of the opponent. It kind of tracks, and then he'll do like an uppercut punch as he does it, and it'll launch the opponent in the air. Then he's got another special move, the harpoons. So the harpoons is because he's a robot. He like opens his chest a bit and he like shoots these hooks on wires out, and if it hits the opponent, it grabs them and it pulls them in, and they're like in like a helpless state for like a period where you can like hit them. So like a basic Smoke combo would be something like, oh, someone jumps at you, and then you anti-air them and they go pew, and they're flying backwards, and then you teleport punch, relaunch them. I think you can even work on a second teleport punch, and then as they're falling again, you do the harpoons, and then you hit them mid-air with the harpoons, pull them in, and then do like your 5-hit like string. And you're like, I was like, damn, that's a fun combo to do. It's so simple, but it's so cool and satisfying. It's such a like a fun, I don't know, it's fun to pull off like the spacing game. The way that like compared to, okay, so in most other fighters, the way that it works, it'll be like normal, normal into special or something like that. Normal into special, some variation of that. MK seems to, at least classic MK, works a lot more like you get whatever kind of starter, whether that be with a string or an anti-air that gives you a launcher, and then as they're falling, that's when you get to use your special moves. And then your special moves will have some kind of juggle property, and balancing those together with your strings is like how you because the strings are very like pre-canned. You can almost think of them as like, you can almost think of the specials and the strings as being like their own, being in like the same category almost. It's just that the strings are like the close range specials or something like that. And it's just kind of like all these pieces, and you kind of put the pieces together very intuitively, actually. Very, very like, the way that, you know, the juggles work is very intuitive in my opinion. I think Ermac is super cool. It's like he has a really simple string where he just does like 2 hits, and the second hit is an uppercut that launches. And the, like, what is his combo? It's like you launch and then you jump and do a jump kick mid-air, and then he has a teleport punch which he can use in the air. So he comes flying in from the other side of the screen. He teleports in like a burst of smoke or fire. He flies in from the other side of the screen, punches, and then as the opponent is falling, he can do like a telekinetic slam. I'm like, that's so cool. Pretty sure you can even do like another hit as they're falling, like to juggle a bit. It's such a different way of structuring combos and putting them together that is actually really fun and not even that difficult to do. I actually really enjoyed my time with the game, and it seems like characters in general are pretty easy to pick up. I would be really on board with like a modern re-release for like the classic MK titles. If they just did like I mentioned, you know, like a few episodes ago when I talked about Deadly Alliance, like I'd like to see a collection of the 3D games. I would, honestly, I'd like to see all of them get re-released in like a, let's see, there were, like a, maybe just like a redo of Trilogy almost. Just do like the same way that, you know, SF2 had like that one, I forget which version it was, but it's the one where you can play like every different version of Ryu or whatever, or Ken, or, you know, whatever, from the different versions of Street Fighter 2. Do something like that with like the MK Trilogy plus Trilogy, because it's MK, MK2, MK3, UMK3, and then Trilogy. And Trilogy and UMK3 are apparently very, very different, actually, at a competitive level, even though Trilogy has like more characters and stuff. So it actually goes beyond that. So, I don't know, I think it would be neat if you could like just have one game with everything in it, and you could kind of like pick and choose which mechanics you wanted to use, and it had like, you know, modern features and all that. I think that would be, I would legitimately like want to pick that up just to like practice, you know, some UMK3 and like play it online, because it's genuinely really fun. Yeah. So overall positive thought. I'm having like a classic Mortal Kombat exploration like renaissance, you know. And hey, actually speaking of something sort of relating to this, talking about preserving old games. Remember when we talked about Embracer Group? The company that weirdly owns like 100 video game publishers and developers? They announced they are officially building a games archive. So they just put out this releasement. They call it the Games Archive. They say, for us, games are more than just games. It's culture. It's something created by great people with creative ideas. By building a large archive of physical games, we want to preserve and tribute the game's culture for a long period of time. So it's got a letter from the CEO, And he says, imagine a place where all physical video games, consoles, and accessories are gathered at the same place. Think about how much that could mean for games culture and enabling video games research. This journey has just been started and we are at an early stage, but already now we have a large collection to take care of at the Embracer Games Archives premises in Karlstad, Sweden. A team of experts has been recruited and will start building the foundation for the archive. At Embracer Games Archive, we believe that games carry a heritage worth celebrating and safeguarding for the future. Our goal is clear. We want to archive and save as much of the video game industry as possible. They've got 50,000 games, consoles, and accessories. Next phase, build a database and start cataloging. In the future, network and collaborate with initiatives, museums, and institutions. Hey, maybe the Maid. Maybe the Maid. Long-term ambition, exhibit parts of the archive locally and through satellite exhibitions at other locations. So this is interesting because it puts me in a weird conflict. Because I saw this and I was reading through this and I went, please don't make me like the giant corporate holdings group. They're not like a corporation, I guess, but they're like a holdings group. Do not make me feel warm feelings towards them, because I feel like, as you're probably aware, I'm very passionate about games archiving and the whole thing, retro games, preserving games, and all that. You know, digital, like the games themselves, and also just, you know, physical materials and things like that. And this is something that is like very on, it's very at my speed, if I'm being honest. It's very like, oh, this is something I'm interested in. This is something that I am really down with, and the more that I read about it, I can't really see any upfront, like, cynical purpose for this. It just seems to be kind of honest, like an honest appreciation for video game history. And I appreciate that. I actually really appreciate that. It's something that a lot of my channel is focused around. Now, mind you, this is an archive. It's not a museum. So, like, for instance, what the Maid does, the place I've volunteered at in the past, is having like an entire, everything in the museum is playable, for instance. This seems to be just like a giant warehouse. It's like a giant warehouse of stuff to preserve it for the purposes of archiving, which is like fine in its own way. I think that that's like, you know, those two things serve different purposes. Who owns the games in the archive? Embracer, so they own everything. The purpose of the archives, yeah, have a physical copy, a copy of each physical game ever released. Yeah, so I really don't know what to say about this other than that it's kind of cool, and I am sort of surprised that a company that I would otherwise look at with kind of a cynical distrust is doing something that seems targeted at me to win me over. Maybe they've been watching the channel, who knows? Who knows? If you're at Embracer Group, reach out to me. Yeah. Okay, it's time for the big thing, okay? We are at almost 25 minutes into this. We're into the big thing. So, last week, I said, hey, I think that Street Fighter 6 might get revealed. Don't know if it will, but it might. So I wanna go over my roster. And guess what? I was correct on the reveal. not the roster. We'll get to that. We'll get to that. So, yeah, honestly, the entire state of play... I should bring up the state of play in general. The state of play in general was... I thought it was great. It was very refreshing to have an event where it was, like, no nonsense. There was, like, one cut in of, like, a guy who was, like... That was it. That lasted, like, a minute. The rest of it was just, like, trailers. And some of it for AAA stuff, some of it for indie stuff, some like little stuff in between. There was that Stray game where you can be a cat. Yeah, Cat likes that one. Yeah. Let's see. What are some other major trailers? The other one. Okay, so obviously people are talking about the Resident Evil 4 remake. I have not played... Never played a Resident Evil. Maybe I need to get on that. Probably should get on that. Also, it looks good. I don't know. It looks good. I remember... Oh, this Final Fantasy 16 trailer looks baller. I don't know if it's going to be... Is it... I have to check. Is it going to be PS exclusive? FF16 platforms. So far, it just says PlayStation 5. Exclusive to PS5 systems at launch. Okay, at launch. So that means it'll definitely be coming to other systems. I mean, Remake was on PC, right? It was. Yeah, FF7 Remake was on PC. So I fully expect it to be on PC at some point. At which point I will play it because it looks really good. I mean, it's Yoshi P directing it or producing it, whatever. He's leading the project. When he leads a project, it tends to come out well. It tends to come out pretty good. He seems to be pretty good at leading people and getting schedules made and finding good people for positions who do their job good. I really like how it's very like summons focused. The summons in Final Fantasy have like 100 different names. I think they're being called icons in this one, which is what they're called in 10 if I'm not mistaken. So that's cool. It looks like there's, in addition to the Devil May Cry, the literal Devil May Cry combat, because it's the same battle director as Devil May Cry 5. In addition to that, there's also seemingly a big kaiju battle mode where you fight summons. It looks really cool. It's like, there's vaguely like an Attack on Titan thing, I think. Like the people turn into the summons, which could be... It's a really cool idea, honestly. I don't think that's been done before. It's usually been like, you know, like a character who summons the summons, but someone like turning into one. I don't think. I guess 14 has a character who there's no. I guess with spoiling as little as possible, there's a character in 14. There's like a boss fight with one of the classic like summons, and there's a character who basically gets like, they don't like turn into them, but it's more of like a they're filled with all their power or something. They kind of become the embodiment of them, but they are not literally the summon. They just become like the avatar of the summon, I think was the idea. Yeah, it looks great. It looks good. Oh man, when I heard the rendition of the main theme, that I was on board, and then I heard the main thing, I was like, oh, I'm in. That's the power it has. It's power a good theme has. And then Street Fighter 6 got announced, and I was in shock. So I remember when the teaser first came, I was like, oh, you saw Ryu's like all his fucking pores and shit. People were like, what is the game gonna look like? You know, like how realistic is the game gonna look? And it is not as crazy as I was expecting in terms of, excuse me, the hyper realism. It is more realistic. It's definitely a lot, more realistic feeling, but they've kind of done this interesting, slightly exaggerated thing. I don't know how to describe this game's visual style, because first of all, the visuals, it's the first thing I have down in my notes. The visual style is, I think, really good. Spoiler alert, I'm very positive on most of this, so if you're coming looking for doubt and worry, you're probably not going to get it from me. I was very positive for most of this. I got a very good, optimistic impression from the whole reveal and everything that came out. It's like, okay, so I should actually explain, like, kind of the most striking element of the presentation, which is that Street Fighter is doing what a lot of people kind of asked for it to do. It was to go back to the hip-hop influences. So that was from, Street Fighter, all the way back from Street Fighter 3. Because SF3 has a very distinct identity compared to the rest of the series. I would say, like, Street Fighter 2 is the game, like, well, no one cares about the original game. Street Fighter 2 is the one that people, like, it's just kind of, like, iconic just because it was so influential. Alpha has the more, like, anime-ish look, the more anime cartoony look, and then 3 has the strong, like, hip-hop stylings, which it's not, like, super present, but it's there enough that you're, like, you remember it. Like, it's in the soundtrack, it's in some of the stages. It just it has, like, a feel to it. I think a lot of it actually does come from the soundtrack. Because they were going for, like, the new generation. It was the 90s, so the new generation was hip-hop. So they're kind of going back to that, but they've done this interesting thing that actually I think is very smart, where, okay, so 4 had a very ink brush style to it. Like, a lot of the aesthetics of that game was based around, like, the, like, Japanese calligraphy with, like, the main focus attack. Like, the main mechanic was the focus attack, and it was this big attack that your character would, like, charge up. It was armored, and then if you landed it, it would, like, crumple the opponent. You'd get, like, a free combo. And the effect for the focus attack is, like, these kind of, like, streams of like, black ink kind of rising off your character like smoke, almost. And then the actual strike would always be, like, they'd like, throw this punch, this very, like, mid-punch, but there would be an actual, like, ink brush stroke that followed their fist or something like that. It was always something like, whatever the animation was. That was always the look. It's like they were painting with their attacks or something like that. And then 5 kind of expanded on that, where it was more of like a colorful paint thing. So whenever you pop your V trigger, every character had their like a flourish of, like, these paint effects that would like stream around them for a second, and every character had their own colors, their own unique colors for it. 6, and then also in, like, the windscreens and the super animations, I think. 6 seems to have taken that idea and pushed it from being, like, just paint to, like, full-on graffiti art, which I think is a really smart move. So all of the system mechanics have some kind of graffiti, paint splatter, kind of flourish to them. Kind of, splash or something like that, depending on, what the mechanic is. So, for instance, there is a... should I get into... I'll get into the drive system. Okay, I'll get into the drive system now, because I do want to talk about the mechanics. So, they also revealed, like, they have a website out with all the core mechanics, which is very appreciated, because I just wanted a bunch of info on what we were seeing in the trailer. And so basically, they have introduced a new system called Drive. And Drive is basically a smorgasbord of mechanics from previous Street Fighter games, which I think is actually a pretty smart idea. And it's all tied into a single resource, the Drive gauge. So you've got like 5 like bars of it that you actually start with, and then it refills over time. And the different drive attacks use different amounts of the drive gauge. So, for instance, parry is back, and it looks to be more of like the Street Fighter V style parry, where you actually go into like a stance, as opposed to just like it fails or it succeeds or you get hit thing from like 3. So it seems to be more like that. And so like when you do a parry, there's like a little ink splash, just like a little like effect, right? And it kind of dissipates quickly. But if you do a perfect parry, which I think is like, it said something like within like a few frames. There's like 2 different windows. There's like a general parry window, and then there's like a perfect parry window, which is much tighter. And if you get that, you get this big like ink splash effect behind your character, and like time stops, and I think the screen darkens a little bit. What I noticed, and this might just be a pre-release thing, I'm not sure, but the 2 stages that they showed off are very like, they seem like slightly desaturated, which makes the characters like, in my opinion, like pop out a little more. Like the alleyway that they show them fighting in is like just a little gray, and this like Japanese mountaintop that I'm sure is like Ryu's stage, also like just a little like gray with like a splash of color from either like the neon lights on the alley or the cherry blossoms on the mountaintop. So yeah, the characters, like in my opinion, like really popped out from the background. Some people don't like how washed out the stages look, which I think is fair, but you know, we'll see more stages, and we'll see how it goes, because both of these seem to be at, I don't know, the alleyway stage took place at night, and then the mountaintop seems to be some kind of like dusk or cloudy kind of thing. So we'll see if there's like, you know, some daytime stage. There's got to be some daytime stages. So, yeah, I really like just honestly. So like, one of the new mechanics is, I think it's called Drive Impact. It's basically focus attack. However, the neat little like visual for it is, so like for Luke. So Luke's colors, so like everyone gets their, you know, still gets their unique colors. Luke's colors are like the orange, white, and blue. So when he does his drive impact, and he like, when he lands it, all of these like graffiti arrows like punch out of the character from the, almost like it's getting knocked out of them, like it's spilling out of them from the impact. And it's all in like his colors, so it's all I don't know if it's like unique for every character, like what pattern they get or something like that, but it has like already a really strong visual identity, even for being more grounded in realism, in my opinion. Like when you do supers, I'm not sure if it's like whenever you do a super or when you kill with a super, but there's like a big graffiti thing, like I think it's a Street Fighter, but I'm not sure, that it pops up in the background during like the screen freeze on the KO. I think it looks great. Obviously, people were pointing out things that could be touched up. Some background characters that could use some touching up, which, I mean, like, you know, how many characters that they even have done background characters, I'm sure, are not that important. I hope it gets better. I would assume it would. If it didn't, I'd be surprised, let's say. So, geez, okay. Hold on. I should talk about drive in general now. So drive, as I mentioned, is a smorgasbord of previous mechanics. So you've got the parry from Street Fighter 3 with the perfect parry, which is neat. I don't know if they didn't seem to have like a red parry equivalent, which is like fine, sure. They have impact, which is basically just focus attack. They have so they have focus attacks, and then they also have focus attack dash canceling. So basically the way they've broken it down is, this is actually really cool. They've basically built dash canceling into the system mechanics. So let's see, the official website says perform a quick rush forward from a drive parry or a cancelable normal attack. Oh, it's just parry. I thought it was drive impact. Can you not? Cancelable normal attack. Depends on whether or not impact. Okay. Oh yeah, so the drive impact also like totally staggers and blows the opponent back even if they block, which is kind of funny. So I missed that. I thought it was a focus attack dash cancel. No, it's actually kind of... Okay, so you can do it out of a parry, or you can do it out of a normal attack, and the normals are like, there'll be specific normals that are like dash cancelable. So that is really cool. I like that a lot, actually. It looks like it costs... So if you do it from a parry, it only costs 1 drive stock. And if you... So parry itself costs apparently like half a bar of drive. And drive rush costs 1 whole bar. So you spend like 1.5 bars to do like an instant dash forward, basically. And then from a normal attack, it costs 3. So that's interesting, because they also have what's called overdrives, which are basically just EX moves. Overdrives are, they actually say, these are the same attacks as EX specials in past games. So overdrive moves are just, they are no longer tied to your super meter. That's a different meter. And the overdrive move, oh jeez, overdrives cost 2. So I'm just theory crafting in my head right now. If you want to do, so if you're doing a combo, for instance, if you have full drive gauge, you can do a combo that includes a dash cancel out of a normal, which could function very similarly to basically just canceling immediately out of it. Depends on like how fast you can cancel out. So you might get combos that are only possible using the dash cancel. And if you have full drive, that means that you have enough for 1 dash cancel and out of a normal, and 1 EX move. So I'm just going over that in my head. I don't know how significant that's going to be, but it's going to be like, I'm sure it'll come up. And there's also drive reversal, which is basically just V reversal, which is basically just alpha counter from the alpha series. It's you block while you're blocking, you do like a counter attack, and it kind of blows them away. What I find interesting is that, I said this is kind of a collection of mechanics from previous Street Fighter games. You got parry from 3, you got the focus attack from 4, you got V reversals, like alpha counters from alpha. You have EX moves from ever since 3. And you've got dash cancels, which are actually kind of new. So you're like, oh, well then what's the Street Fighter 5? What's the Oh, you have 6 bars of drive. I didn't realize that. Okay. No, you do have 5. What the fuck? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wait, what? Oh, they're both Oh, I totally missed that. Okay. You have 6 bars of drive. In the screenshot they showed, both characters are using like the impact at the same time, so they're actually missing one, and it was just hard to tell that they have like a bar missing. Okay, you have 6 bars, so never mind what I said. What the fuck was that? Right. What did they pull from 5? You might be asking. They pulled the V system and basically just made it not exist anymore. So, I have a big rant about the V system, which I feel like I've done before, but I'm going to do it again. So, actually, when I was researching my last video on the Daigo Lupe match exhibition, I came across some stuff while looking up like Woshiga's involvement in Street Fighter V because I was trying to get footage or like a picture or something, and I ended up landing on this article that was about how Woshiga's background with Arc System Works games potentially influenced some of the mechanics from 5, and the more that I read it, the more that it made sense. So they bring up a comparison which I hadn't even thought of before, but the whole V system is, in concept at least, very similar to BlazBlue's drive and overdrive system. Try not to get confused because Street Fighter 6 also has drive and overdrive, but they're completely different. So for those unaware, in BlazBlue you have 4 like main attack buttons, A, B, C, and D is your drive. And drive is essentially every character's gimmick button. So every character is designed around their drive, basically. It is like the move that... It is the move or the set of moves that defines their character. Everyone has a unique mechanic, a unique system that is completely... Their whole design revolves around it. So, like, for instance... Rachel Alucard, who's like a Gothic Lolita vampire girl. She has a bunch of moves, like special moves where she like throws out like items, like she got a frog, she got I think a bat. I forget what all of her different like little familiars are. But she has like a couple things that she can toss out and they'll kind of like walk around and they don't really do anything on their own. But her drive it basically allows her to control the wind. So she can like press drive and then like a direction, and she can move the wind in a certain direction, and it will actually push her because she has an umbrella, and all of the little familiars that she tosses around. So she can do these like really interesting setups and like crazy mobility stuff with like extending combos by like following with, you know, the gust of the winds, like pushing her forward and stuff like that. So her whole kit is based around her drive. Let's see, there's another character. Like all the puppet characters, they all control their like their puppet with the drive. Like Carl controls his robot by like hitting drive. That's how he like turns it on basically. Activates it. Relius does the same thing. I'm pretty sure Celica does the same thing too. Every character is based around drive, and they have what's called an overdrive, which is a mode that you can basically go into that has a really long cooldown that basically just takes whatever your gimmick is and kind of amps it up to 11 essentially. So I forget a lot of characters' overdrives because I never got into BlazBlue enough to like fully understand it. So let's take Rachel for instance. So her overdrive, where's her overdrive? Okay, so drive is called Sylphid. Summon the wind in 8 different directions. Wind affects all of Rachel's projectiles, movement, and her opponent's position during combos. She has like wind stocks. Oh yeah, she has like, she can only use it like so many times before it has to regenerate. So her overdrive, Elfried. So Rachel's overdrive Sylphid gauge recovers faster. So then all of her supers involving her drive. So number 1 with the overdrive is that the gauge recovers faster. I'm assuming that it's fast enough that her pressure becomes insane. And the distortion drives, which is all of her supers that use her drive. I'm pretty sure that's what the fucking... No, it's not. What are the... Blaze Blue has so many supers. Okay, distortion drives is just your regular supers. Basically, they also get powered up. So basically, the overdrive, the commonality is that powered up in the sense that like they summon more projectiles, they do more damage and all that. Every character's overdrive is basically a mode that they go into that makes them super powerful, that just boosts up whatever their drive is, essentially. Now compare this to the V system from Street Fighter V, and you have what looks pretty similar. The V skill is a unique ability that every character has that ties into the overall like V system because it increases your gauge and it supposedly does a unique thing. And then you have V trigger, which is once you have filled up your V gauge, you pop it and you go into some kind of boosted up mode. So on the surface, it seems very similar to the drive system. However, there was a flaw with this that is not like you hear that and you're like, okay, like on its face, it doesn't sound like a terrible idea. The problem comes with the way that they implemented it in the initial like lives of the game. So for instance, so the way that I like to say this is that Street Fighter V is a fun game that has a lot of foundational issues, and that comes from the V system. So that basically they just played it way too safe. They just played it way too safe with the initial launch roster and the even like the first season of DLC to an extent, which necessitated that they, okay, so like for instance, and this is actually really funny because I was collecting a bunch, there's a bunch of footage that I didn't use for the Daigo vs. Lupe video, and one of those is where he talks about his opinion, his actual thoughts on Five's V system, and how he gave this like interview with Yahoo Esports, and he's like, yeah, I'm really excited for it. It seems like a great system. And then in his stream, like years later, he was like, yeah, I was not impressed at all with it. He said something like his reaction when they first, like they were really excited to show him the new system, you know, because he's Daigo. And he looks at it, and obviously he's interested in like Ryu, right? And it's like Ryu's V skill is, he does a parry. And in his reaction, he literally goes like, so they tell me like Ryu's V skill is a parry. And I go, oh, okay. And then his V trigger is his fireballs get stronger. And I was like, oh, I see. Just like completely uninterested. With like the mechanic, he's like, this is your big like mechanic, like that every character is like designed around this. That's ultimately the problem, is I think that they like struggled. Was this inspired by BlazBlue? I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, because Washiga was the battle planner. But the issue that they ran into was, I think that what I imagine they ran into during development, I'll say, because I don't know this for sure, is they were like, okay, we have this idea. We're basically going to do like drives in Street Fighter. But then you run into this thing where it's like, how do you, because BlazBlue characters are 100% designed around their drives. Like you cannot take drive away from like any of those characters and have them function properly. Like maybe, I don't know, maybe some of them could be like okay, but nothing near like you play them with their drive and it's like, obviously this is how the character is designed to be played. So you run into this thing where like, okay, how do you, these are, a lot of these characters, you know, in Street Fighter, they've been designed from the outset without these mechanics. So how do we then redesign them in a way that is like central to their character, to their like gameplay? I think they just had a lot of trouble with that, and they just kind of ended up with like, we'll just have them. What V skill ended up being was, it was just kind of another move, is what people complained about. It's just kind of another move. It doesn't feel special enough or central enough to characters to really be like a hallmark mechanic. And then V trigger was also pretty like safe for most characters. It was very like rough and basic feeling, kind of like they were obviously like, they were played it very safe and conservative with the way that they designed V triggers. Compare that to, you know, later ones like Oro or something, where his V trigger 2 is like insane. That brings me to another problem. It was so, I honestly do not think that they plan to add a second V skill or V trigger to the cast. I don't think that they planned that during the initial development. I think what happened was they saw how it released, and then as they were kind of seeing how the game played out, they realized that it was not as central or game-changing as they wanted. So they were like, oh, let's add another V-trigger. And they added another V-trigger, and from that point on, they actually gimped themselves in the future. Because what was the problem with the V system is that characters don't feel like their V system is central to their design. Well, what happens when you add a second V trigger and V skill later down the line? Now you ensure that any future characters added to the game that they develop cannot be designed around their V system. They can't in the same way that like a BlazBlue character is, because there have to be two of them. The character has to function well enough without the V trigger that having it, that like switching between them does not like, isn't super like polarizing, essentially. How am I trying to say? I don't know if I communicated that in a great way. Because the character has to be able to like have two V triggers and two V skills, those abilities can't be defining to the character, because you can just change them. What, are you gonna have like two different definitions to the character? I guess you could, but that's like really difficult to come up with. So my go-to example is G, because G has a unique mechanic. His thing is that he has a move where he draws power from the earth, and then he levels up all of his specials. He has like 3 different levels. He levels up his specials, and he gets new combo routes. So the way it used to work was that he had like level 1, 2, and 3. And one sort of problem that he had was that actually when he got level 3, which is like the goal for the character, he would actually lose certain combo routes because he wasn't able to use the level 2 versions of moves. So what they did was they made it so that when you hit level 3, light, medium, and heavy versions of moves then become the level 1, 2, and 3 versions. G is a character who, like, you're like, oh, imagine G in a character like G in BlazBlue. Are there characters? I feel like there's characters who level up in BlazBlue. Are there? I feel like there are. Off the top of my head, I can't think of one who like actually like has a level that goes up that changes their combos or something like that. I guess maybe Amane, sort of. So much to say. Imagine, okay, so like if G was in BlazBlue, or let's just use the Street Fighter V terms, right? I don't know. Let's use BlazBlue terms. If G was a BlazBlue character, his drive would be the move where he pulls the power from the earth and he levels up. That would be his main thing, or he would have a move that uses his drive that does that. Drive would probably be some kind of attack, and then it would be some kind of like down drive or something would be like that. The level up move or something like that. If it was like his V skill, it would just be his V skill. if every character had just single V skill, single V trigger, it would just be his V skill. He would just be designed around it. And then what I imagine is that as he would level up, you know, he would be able to like cancel moves into the energy pole. He would be able to maybe use it in a couple different ways, something like that. And then his V trigger in my mind would be like, normally he would have that same thing where it's just strict level 1, 2, and 3. But then his V trigger, his overdrive, so to speak, would be he then gains access to all levels of his moves, so that he gets the most combo routes. And he probably, you know, would get some other buff on top of it because it's Blaze Blue. And maybe some of his specials would get enhanced or something like that. That's how I imagine he would be designed, right? But because every character needs 2 V skills and 2 V triggers, you can't design him like that. So he has to have, I don't even know, like, what are his, I don't even know, like, what his, I have to go look this up. G's, where is G? What are his V skills? V system, okay. V skill 1, G barrier. Oh, is it that like is that his like the little orb he makes around him? Okay. That's fine. He makes like a little orb and he can like throw it, I think. V skill 2, G protection, which is just where he gains he like he buffs himself so he takes 10% less damage. Stacks up to 3 times. Cancel it if he gets knocked down. Okay. Okay. Those are fine moves. Is G designed around his like big golden orb move? No, not at all. It's like in some of his combos, but that's sort of it. Is he designed around becoming super tanky and taking like 30% less damage? No, nothing really builds into that or builds from that. V trigger 1 increases his, oh, okay, you sort of get like a, so his V trigger 1, he gets level 3 and he can cancel specials into specials. Okay. That's like a decent one. And then where's his 2? Gives G access to new special moves. G Explosion, which is just a combo extender, and G Rage, which is a command grab. So it's like, you know, it's enough. It's fine. It's more like, it feels more like a thing on top of his existing moves. And it also doesn't interact with like his V skills, which is kind of disappointing. So my basic point is that they played it too safe with the initial V system, and then ended up having to add like additional V skills and V triggers, which ended up kind of ensuring that they would never be able to design a character fully around their V system. And in the worst case scenario, you get like, or in the most polarizing scenarios, you get like Urien and Oro. So like Urien has 2 V triggers. One of them is clearly better than the other, and it's his, or I don't know if it's clearly better than the other, but it's one everyone uses because it's his Aegis reflector, his classic Aegis reflector. The iconic Urien thing is that he gets a hit, he confirms it into the reflector, he puts out the mirror, and then he combos you off of this wall that he's essentially created, and it's super cool and flashy and stylish. That's what people play Urien for, and that's one of his V-triggers. That's one everyone uses. Then you have Oro. Like, I don't even know what his other V-trigger does. I think it gives him, like, a new move or something, but, like, no one uses it. Oro has 2 V-triggers. As well, every character, it's redundant to say. His first one lets him combo into his command grab. The second one is Tengu Stones, and Tengu Stones is godly. Tengu stones is he summons all these stones, and then every time he attacks, the stones basically like psychically like follow up his attacks, which basically means that he can combo tons of things into other things because he gets all this additional hit stun on his opponent from the rocks hitting them. So Oro, it like helps a bunch of his like existing problems with like routing and stuff. Oro's like no one uses V-Trigger 1 because it doesn't really do anything for him to like combo into his command grab that he doesn't already like get at the off of the conversions that he gets the command grab off of. Everyone uses stones because it opens up, it makes the character like function. Oro with V-Trigger 2 is like amazing as long as it's active, and once it runs out, he goes back to being, you know, not too great, kind of a struggle bus character. But that's what's so cool about him, and that's why even though he is considered kind of low tier, people find him really fun because his V-Trigger 2 is so good. It feels like he was designed around it. Yeah, and then also the weird one thing I noticed about the V system that always kind of annoyed me is that the V triggers were just like a lot of times aimed as like a repository for old supers that the characters used to have, and then no one was ever allowed to have like a utility super. Supers in Street Fighter V are critical arts, as they're called. All the critical arts they're all damage supers. They're all damage. There's like no utility things at all, which is something like, you know, the Aegis Reflector would fit into, or stones would fit into. They all get relegated to being V-triggers, which is just kind of annoying. So you look at the way that, how did Street Fighter 6 interpret this, and they went, oh, the characters can just do that now. So Ryu's, like, V-trigger, where he powers up his fireballs, that's just a move he has now. He just has that attack, or it's not an attack, but he just has that power-up, that install, essentially. He installs, and now he gets stronger fireballs. He can just do it. Chun-Li is now a stance character, which is interesting. I'm like, they always do something weird with Chun-Li. They always change her moveset in some weird way. Guess what? Now she's a weird stance character. She has this, like, crouching stance that she can do a bunch of attacks out of. You know that would have been a V skill. That would have been tied to the V system. But now it's just a thing she can do, which I think is cool. They're just letting characters have their own individual mechanics and things, which I think is a much better approach than tying it into some universal system that you're going to half-ass. Because now, like, Ryu's power-up thing, it's like, it's just interesting enough to be a move that he just has. It makes the character just spicy enough, I guess. And then every character, it looks like, just has 3 supers, which is what the super, because you have 3 bars of super, and they carry over between rounds, and every character has, like, 3 supers. So this is the first time that it's Street Fighter. You're going to have, outside of, like, a versus game, that the Street Fighter characters are going to have multiple supers in a game. That you don't have to, like, choose between. That seems cool. I'm really on board for this. I wanted to touch... I like that the core mechanic of the game, the drive, is just a universal thing that everyone can do. That, to me, opens up a lot more room for, like, cool stuff and creativity. And, yeah, like I like having a very flexible set of options that everyone in the game can use. Maybe that's the Guilty Gear player in me talking, but I like it when there's just a bunch of interesting system mechanics that everyone has access to. Let me see. Oh, quick note on the control schemes. There is a classic and a modern control type, which people... So, like, once I read the... when I was reading, like, the overview of, like, battle system design, the first thing it says is, simpler controls will let you improve your offense and defense. And I went, oh no. Oh no, what's going on? Oh no. which led to control type. And there's 2 control types, modern and classic. And I was like, oh no. So there's 2 styles that you can select between. Classic is just the traditional. It's what you would expect. Modern, this is what scared me until I read about it. Modern controls are stylish mode from Guilty Gear Xrd, which should relieve all of your fears. My initial thought was like, oh no, are they gonna like simplify the control scheme for no reason? But no. I was worried about modern controls being, first of all, there being a single control scheme and it being a lot simpler. And I'd be like, ugh, okay, I don't really want that. The modern controls are essentially, yeah, they're stylish mode from Guilty Gear Xrd. If you aren't familiar with stylish mode, look, to be honest, even people who played Xrd are not familiar with stylish mode, which is a good thing. Or should be an encouraging thing if you're worried about this. Basically what it does is it's basically the training wheels version of the full control scheme. So classic is the full controls, modern is the simplified down version that is, yeah, it's the training wheels version. So instead of having 6 buttons and motion inputs, you have 3 attack buttons, light, medium, and heavy. You have a special move button, which is just like smash style, smash style commands. So you have like neutral, back, down, and forward, which is interesting because Ryu seems to have more attacks than that. He has that like power-up move, so I guess you just can't use that. And that's really the thing with it's the rub with modern, is that it's simpler and you can do things with the press of a button, but it basically cuts your move set in half. You do not get different punches and kicks. You apparently don't get, if you have if your character has more than 4 special moves, you don't get access to them. They have a button for throws, a button for the focus attacks, button for the parries, and they have an assist button, which is actually just combo assist. You like hold it down, and basically you just hold it down and then tap one of the attack buttons, and it gives you an auto combo that seems to end in a seems to always end in super. Excuse me. For medium and heavies. Classic controls is exactly what you would expect. So that is encouraging. That is it seems like the purpose of this is for people who are interested in the game but feel intimidated. Like, if you've played a fighting game, you know, like, this stuff is not that hard to get down, actually. Like, once you've kind of learned one, like, it is like a knowledge hump if you've never played one before, but, like, once you learn one, it's really not that hard to compartmentalize motion inputs into your muscle memory and stuff like that. There's only, like, 4 motion. You got, like, quarter circles, DPs, half circles, and charge motions. It's pretty much all you're doing. It's not that hard, but for the people who, like, when Terry or the other, like, when the Shotos came out in Smash, there's all these Smash players who have never picked up, like, a traditional 2D fighting game, and they're like, oh god, oh my god, they treat it like it's this mountain to do, like, a quarter circle. They're like, and, like, that's for who this is for. This is for people who are just, like, intimidated by the idea of doing, like, motion inputs or having, like, 6 different attack buttons. Which is fine, honestly. Like, if it helps them enjoy the game, like, so be it. I doubt it will make that much of a difference. Maybe the closest thing it could make a difference was, like, the auto combos, but I don't know. Maybe that's the most that I can expect. Having, like, 1-button specials is not going to be... I don't think it's going to be so bad. I don't know how they're going to handle it with, like, ranked But like this is honestly like it's not for people who are very competitive. Competitive players are probably going to, when I say competitive, I mean like you're going on ranked at all, or you're going online at all. A vast majority of people don't even go online. Like this is for those people. They're like, I just want to pick it up, I want to hit buttons. Perfectly fine. And for the person who, you know, is fairly beginner, but, you know, has more of a, I don't know, it gets a little more into the game, like invested in it. It's a way for them to be like, I'm not using the training wheels mode anymore. I'm using the classic control scheme. This is you know, this is for the real players. You know, it creates that kind of effect. So, yeah, I'm. Oh yeah, the real-time commentary thing is goofy. You basically get like Madden-style commentary with like actual announcers from like the Capcom Pro Tour series and stuff like that. In multiple languages too. So far there's only 2, English and Japanese. But it's really funny. I can't wait for people to start modding that in. Like someone already made like people have been making memes with like the LTG voice pack. Okay. What else do I need to talk about? Single player mode. Holy shit. Yeah, there's like an actual like open, I don't know if it's an open world or just they haven't shown off enough of it, but there's like a free roaming gameplay type where like you have like hub zones, and you like create a character and you like run around and like interact with the environment and stuff, and they show like a guy like breaking a box and like, I don't know, maybe you get an item from that or something like that. I have no idea. And you like meet other people and you challenge them to fights, and I guess that's what you go into the gameplay with. And it looks very fleshed out. Like did I talk about this? I had this idea in my head. I'm like, they should do something like the Crypt, like from Mortal Kombat. They should do like the Crypt, but it's like, you know, it's like a full world with like gameplay in it and stuff, as opposed to just walking around open up boxes. Like that would be so cool. And it seems like they've actually done that. They have taken, what this seems like is that Capcom is actually putting some money behind their fighting game division, and they're like, this isn't just going to be an arcade game anymore. We can't just make arcade games, because that's what like, if you have like fighting games for the longest time have just been arcade games ported over to consoles. And to the average consumer, what that actually seems like is they don't think it's just an arcade game. What they see is this is a budget game. Fighting games, what's the most frustrating thing about being a fighting game fan for the last few years is that every game that comes out feels like a budget game. It feels like it's you can feel the budget constraints. This feels like they're actually going whole hog. They're dropping it on the table, and they're making a statement, as I like to say. They're making a statement, and they're saying, this is a console game. This is a full-ass game. This is not like a little arcade thing with like bare bones features and a boring story mode that's just like a series of cutscenes and fights and cutscenes and fights. They're actually like putting money behind it. And that is, that's partially why I'm so optimistic about it. I think from like a design perspective, just looking at the core mechanics so far, very encouraging. The amount of effort they seem to be putting into single player, very encouraging. I don't know if it'll actually be good, or it might just be like a shitty little bare bones mode, but I mean, like, it looks like something, which is more than the series has gotten in the past. Finally, I want to talk about the leaks, because less than like a day, it was less than 48 hours, less than 24 hours. Like by that evening, filing my nails in the background. by the evening, the entire roster was leaked. Which was funny for me, because obviously I devoted like a freaking hour to talking about my roster. And I can't say that I was wrong, because I wouldn't consider the one that I put together a prediction. It was just how I would put the roster together, you know, if I was making the game. And honestly, I thought that mine was fairly like well informed in terms of being like, this is what most fighting game launch rosters look like. Is they got the core cast that's in most games with, you know, maybe one or two switched out. They've got a smattering of characters kind of representing entries since, you know, the first game or something like that. And then they have like at most like 4 new characters. At the very most. And then this leak comes out, and it's not what I was expecting. Not at all, in fact. So, I guess spoilers, if you really don't want to hear about this, just go to the next timestamp. But, how do I put this? They went out on, I'll say they went out on a limb with this roster. I actually made a count. Hang on. I made a count of all the characters who were... Oh, did I not save it? Damn. I basically, if I'm going off my memory when I counted, there are 22 characters in the base roster, assuming that all the characters who were leaked are, that this is, in fact, the full roster. 22 characters. Excuse me. And this is just like a lineup of concept art, essentially. Of like character renders, or like 2D renders. So 22 characters, 11 of them are I'll call them the OGs, because technically Ryu and Ken are from Street Fighter 1, but, you know, basically Street Fighter 2 reps. Ryu, Ken, Zangief, Cammy, DJ, which I was not expecting, Akuma, which is great that he's in the base roster, Dhalsim, E Honda, Blanca, Guile, and Chun-Li. We already knew about Chun-Li. I am very... everything except for DJ. DJ is not like the most popular, so I'm actually kind of glad that he got in. I think I've always liked DJ's design. It sucks that he's just like bad in most of the games he appears in. Everyone is redesigned. Everyone gets a substantial redesign. And I'm going to be honest, I really like these redesigns. We have a little bit of a reference because we have Ryu, Luke, and Chun-Li, and Jamie, who's one of the new characters. So we have a bit of a reference for how this concept art translates into 3D models. And it looks pretty good. Like, it seems like, you know, you can look at this concept art and basically draw a conclusion about what they're going to look like. This Cammy redesign is great. That's like the first thing I noticed. A lot of these redesigns I'm really down for. I think this Cammy redesign looks great. I think it was a really interesting way. You can go find it yourself. I don't know if I can link it. It's really easy to find this stuff. Literally just look up the leaked roster. I don't know if I can link it because I don't want to get like copyright claimed by Capcom. I think they're C&Ding a lot of this stuff right now. So Cammy is like, one thing, an overall design trend that it looks like is that they're going for a lot of more of the characters in more day-to-day clothes, or more like and like streetwear seems to be the kind of the overwhelming thing now. Because now you've got the
with the single-player mode, you are literally fighting on the streets. It's the first Street Fighter where you're actually fighting on the streets. So Cammy now... Oh, I didn't even know she has like a little choker locket. That's cool. How do you take Cammy's design and like redesign her in a way that looks good? Well, number one, she's wearing pants. She looks really good. I really like this design because essentially, so like one of the things that Cammy has always, it's always been like a thing with her gameplay is that she's a very kick-based, like leg-based fighter. So obviously her classic design was, oh, it's just, her legs are just completely exposed. That was also partially because Akiman, who is the character designer for Street Fighter 2 and for most of the series up to like 4, had a huge thigh fetish. He was huge into women's thighs. So Cammy has always had, like, you know, green and then boom, her skin tone with her legs. Like, very visually clear, like, where her attacks are coming from. Here, they took a really interesting approach where they basically turned her color scheme into... Actually, when you look at it, it's the Union Jack. It's the British flag. So, that's, like, a neat reference, because she is British. British. So her... It's kind of... So it's, like, black, blue, red, and a little white. And, like, the blonde from her hair. So... Basically what they've done is she's wearing these like black like yoga kind of pants, and then that's like her top half is like very, I guess, diverse in terms of where the colors are spread. So she has like her skin tone, like from top to bottom it's like blonde from her hair, her skin tone, which is fair, and then her torso is like skin tone, this blue cool like short jacket she's got on, and like a black sports bra. And then, like, her midriff, which is her skin tone again. And then, I guess she has her big, silly fire hydrant gloves, someone referred to them as, which are red. So they're kind of like, you can imagine it's going to be, like, around her waist. And then her legs, her whole bottom is just black. The whole bottom half of her design is just black. So you still have that really apparent, like, you know exactly... where her like kick moves are coming from. It doesn't like feel messy. I don't know. They were able to do it like it's a really clean and sleek design. She still looks hot. I can't believe that there were fucking people, and I'm sure there's a vast minority of people. There were people who were saying that this was like a censored design. Are you kidding me? Really? Really? Oh, because she doesn't have her hat. That must be what it is. I think she looks fucking great. That's so funny to me. Of like, no, you can't be wearing like super form-fitting, skin-tight yoga pants. It has to be bare flesh. I need to jerk off to everything, or it's censorship. Like the idea that this design was not made with like appeal in mind is like ridiculous to me. DJ has a cool design. He's just fucking... Can you tell this character's Jamaican? Oh yeah, so 11 of the characters are the Street Fighter 2 returners. Most of them also like look good. I like Chun-Li's design. I like how she looks a little older now, because she's supposed to be, I think, around... I'd peg her around, like, the mid-30s, something like that, mid-late 30s. Most of these characters look pretty good. Zangief is wearing pants, which is honestly more censorship than Cammy's design, if I'm being honest. Blanca's got a little ascot. Everyone's wearing shorts. Actually, no, just Blanca's wearing shorts. I don't know why Blanca wearing shorts is so funny to me. Hasn't he always worn shorts? But he's got like this little ascot on. And are those suspenders? Does he have like suspenders on? What a weird design for Blanca. Yeah, most of the characters look how you would expect. I mean, not how you would expect. Just go look it up. Ken looks rough. Ken's looking like And apparently, if the leaks are true, he got divorced and his wife took the fucking kids. She took the kids. Yeah, he looks like he's going through it. A lot of people are upset about the Ken having a struggle backstory or storyline in this game. I think it's fine because all that means is that he's gonna have a great comeback. Like, you never put a character through like a big struggle or something to just be like, yeah, that's just how they are now. Like, no, obviously he's gonna have some kind of big comeback moment. And that's gonna be cool, and I look forward to seeing that. And it's like, hey, if he has to go through a bad time, then for some character growth, so be it. There's only three, I'll call them three returners. Jury's on the base roster, which I was surprised. I was surprised Jury and Akuma were base roster, because they feel like easy DLC farms. But, yeah, Jury looks fucking great. She's the only Street Fighter 4 rep. Which is funny, because I think we went over how most of the Street Fighter 4 newcomers were pretty boring. This is a great... It's more reminiscent of her design from 4. She has the baggy pants back. But it's more of that, like... it's kind of like her design from 4, but more of like a... almost like a tech wear, if you know what that is. She's got, like, zippers and big, like... baggy leather pants and stuff like that. I like the little yin-yang symbol on her belt. I think she looks really... I like her color scheme, the like crazy cyan that they've kind of splashed in there. It's really nice. What's in a cyan? It's kind of like an electric blue. Very nice like contrast to her character. Yeah, so now she has like... it's definitely leaning more towards her design from 4, which I think is great because I like the baggy pants. I like the baggy pants on Jury. Now, okay. I really like Jury's design from Street Fighter 4. And my penis really likes her design from 5. So maybe they'll have like a class. If they have like the 5 like bodysuit design as like an alternate costume, I won't mind. It already looks like from another leak, Cammy also just has her original classic costume. So yeah, obviously they're gonna let you pick those. And then 2 characters from 5, which I was actually a little surprised over. Rashid, who looks really cool. He looks really cool. What I think is what I'm looking forward to is he's got this like all this like kind of loose cloth and fabric and stuff, and because he's a character who like spins and he uses the wind and he's always like jumping and hopping around. I think that stuff's gonna look really cool in motion. I'm looking forward to the way that his like little, what is this, like towel, almost robe thing around his waist is. Oh, it's like his, he has like a dress shirt around his waist that's like down. Those are like sleeves, I think. That's cool. And he's wearing this like over, like robe almost over that. He looks cool. He looks dope. And then Ed finally looks good. Ed has a base design that looks good. I liked the idea of his design from 5, where he's like, his 2 main things are that, okay, he has this like military outfit and he's like a boxer. The problem is that in 5 his design is just way too busy and weird, and he has a silly little hat and like the little flap on his coat that's pinned up for some reason. I don't get it. It's just way too much going on, and none of it is very like good looking. It's just very messy. I've actually really liked his alternate, the one where he, I don't even know what it's called. It's the one where he looks kind of like a male stripper. It's where he just has like the jacket. Yeah, Battle Outfit 1. It's the one where he just has like the jacket around his shoulders with like the chain that's holding it. And he's got like the kind of bison style cap on. And he looks like a boxer. I think that design looks way better. Not everyone is down with it, but I really like it. I like the kind of wearing something around his shoulders, sort of. And this design looks like they leaned into that a lot more, where he's just got like almost looks like it looks like a military jacket, but like more like a puffy like Air Force jacket kind of thing. But it's got his color with like the green. He's wearing jeans. He's got these kind of like little boxer. They're not gloves, but they're like the arm, like hand kind of wraps. I think he looks much better. Also, I can imagine in motion, the color like dispersion is going to make like all of his boxing and punching really apparent if he's got these big green sleeves that are moving and all that. And then I got to talk about the new characters. So first of all, the first one we saw was Jamie. Jamie looks really cool. I like that. I think he's the first Dominican character. And he's the first Drunken Fist character in the series, which I think I was actually kind of surprised about. Supposedly, according to the website, he is basically like Shun-Di from Virtua Fighter, where he's got like a drink level, and then he levels up. As his drink level goes up, he gets access to new moves. One of which is a dive kick, which is funny because they say that he's a big fan of Yin and Yang. Uh-oh. The dive kick time. Yeah, I think Drunken Fist is like a really cool style visually. Apparently, if you like dig into the actual history of the style, it doesn't actually really involve alcohol. It's just more like the appearance of being drunk to like throw off your opponent, and like the what would you call it? The unpredictable movement is the strength of the style. You aren't like actually like wasted. It might legitimately be difficult to fight while you're wasted. I guess I just go through these in order, at least as they're appearing on the leak page. So yeah, I should mention, let's see. I don't have very distinct thoughts about like the returning, like this SF2 cast, besides they generally look pretty good. I like Guile's Air Force thing going on. I think Kuma looks great. Kuma looks so badass. Just a really nice Akuma design. Can't wait to see his angry mug. I'll just go from left to right in the way that the order they seem to appear. Marisa, and I'm just going off reading the kana, so I don't know if these are going to be their final names or if I'm even pronouncing them correctly. It looks like her name is Marisa or Marisa. Marisa would make sense because she's Italian. Holy shit. She is a mountain of a woman. This is definitely a character for a specific audience. And that audience might include me. I think the only character more muscular than her is Zangief. Like, she's fucking huge. She looks like some sort of MMA or boxer type. She looks cool. Looks cool. I really, a lot of these designs really hit for me. I think they look really good. I really like Mimi, this new French character with like the pink hair, and what looks like maybe some people saying a jujitsu, excuse me, uniform. I don't know. I think she looks cool. Her name might be like Marone or something, according to other leaks. No idea. I'm looking forward to seeing just really nice colors. Just really like the kind of like light, the pink and the blue and the white with a little bit of black. It looks really nice. I think her name is either Lily or Lily. It's like Riri. Riri. I guess that's Lily. I thought this was like T-Hawk's sister or something. Because she's from Mexico, but she also has kind of this like native dress thing going on, and these two little weapons, I don't know what those are. Also looks cool. She has the Mexican colors, flag colors in her design. The big one for me is JP. JP, some Russian guy, apparently, who also has some other affiliation. He has like a question mark flag next to him. He might be related to like, I think actually, Lozy, you did bring this up. He might be related to like G and Q because he just has 2 letters in his name. This could just be like a template name. We have no idea because maybe Mimi's name is also Marone. Who knows? You should be able to take one look at this character and be like, yeah, Taigen's interested in this guy because he's dressed like a fancy aristocrat. He's in like he's got this vest, these dress pants, this little cape. He's in orange. His color scheme looks like this orange and white, and a little splash of like blue, and a little gold. Really cool looking character. I'm curious what his gameplay is going to be like. This is just I love well-dressed characters. He's definitely the one I'm most interested in. The character I'm least interested in is probably Kimberly, which is fine. This character was like teased at the end of the trailer, like in the background. She's on like a screen with the Kimberly and her name next to her. She's sassy. It's not really like a design. Like, I think it's a fine design objectively. I'm not super interested in it just because it's just not really my style. But hey, I've seen other people who are like, this character looks awesome. It's like she's really their speed. I'm like, okay, that's who it's made for. Oh, now that I look at her, she almost has kind of like a martial arts kind of top. I don't know what that is. It's almost like the top half of a gi, but it's just like almost like a crop top type thing she has going on. These big ass puffy sleeves. Yeah, she's sassy. And then finally, of the new characters so far, Aki, or AKI, who is some Chinese lady with big claws and like a weird cyberpunk looking dress. Potentially maybe has a connection to Fang or Fong with the, like the what is it called? Abbreviation? Not abbreviation. What is it when you have the letters that stand for the things in the word? The word and the letters all stand for other words. What is that called? Why is this escaping me right now? Wait, how do I even search for this? Words where the letters are... Wait, are other words? Anagrams? No. Oh, jeez. It stands for... the letters that stand for a thing. Why can't I think of what that is? Leave a comment telling me what that is. It's going to come to me as soon as I stop recording. Maybe I need to eat. I haven't eaten yet today. She looks cool. That's all I have to say. I like her design a lot. These designs seem really cool. I'm really on board. That is about as much as I have to say about... So yeah, well, okay, so I'll just wrap it up with... I was surprised at how much of this cast is brand new. I was really not expecting that. I thought that they would pull more from Alpha. I thought there's not a single Street Fighter 3 rep on here, which is very surprising. As much as I really like these designs, I don't know, maybe we could have dropped one of the other SF2 characters. I don't know. There's just... I feel like they'll definitely come back because they're such I mean, like, there's no way that Makoto, Dudley... I'm surprised they did... No Makoto, no Dudley, no Sean, no Sakura. I was legitimately very surprised at that. They will probably be... Supposedly, Sean and, like, Laura, too, are in the story mode at some point, so they could come back. Makoto and Dudley have to come back. I guess they're going to be the DLC farms. As opposed to Juri and Akuma and those. It's your turn in the DLC mines. But hey, well, actually, I say that, but we don't even know the game's price model at this point. So, you know, who knows? Overall, I came away from all of this with a very positive impression of the game. I am very encouraged by the new system mechanics, the new designs, a lot of the returning cast, the single player mode. It seems like they're actually like trying to make a game that has some kind of a direction. Street Fighter V, in my opinion, suffered a lot from being both misdirected and directionless. But it seems like they have like a vision. There is a style and a look, and there's a concept behind it. It isn't just like, I guess we'll do Street Fighter 4 again with better graphics, sort of. Like, there's an idea here. And I'm excited for that. I'm glad they seem to have worked something out. I want a good Street Fighter game at launch, at least. I'm very excited. And with that, I will move to the final segment of this podcast. Because I finally beat Deus Ex. Holy crap. Oh, I spent like 7 hours yesterday finishing the game. Just straight. I'm like, I'm gonna finish the fucking game today. I'm going to finish it. I'm so close. There's 13 missions. I'm on mission 12. And it took me like 7 hours. Now, part of that is because part of that is because I kind of committed to a low kill run. I wasn't like total no kill, all stealth. But I tried to go for as much stealth as I could. And there were some situations where I was like, you just got to fight your way out of this type of thing. Or I got myself into that kind of a situation. So I did do a little killing near the end, especially. But I might have made it a little harder on myself because I did play with like I'll call it a low kill run. I tried to avoid it whenever possible. And that's a little difficult when it's the first time playing the game and you have no idea where any of the positions of the guards are. You don't know the levels of the maps, but that's kind of what I enjoyed about it, was that it actually did force me to do a lot of exploring. And I think I came away with it with a pretty... I feel like I appreciate this game a lot. I have to say, you know, I was holding out like a final opinion, like a final verdict on it until I finished it, because, you know, a lot of games really fizzle out. And I was worried about this because it was going on for so long. Like, that game goes. That game goes. And it's like something new is always coming up that you got to take care of, that you got to solve and infiltrate and find and something like that. And a lot of the levels are just big and sprawling, and there's a bunch of different objectives inside of them. And I have to say, I was worried, like, oh man, is this... I was seeing the potential ways that it could really fall off. Like, you know, like maybe it gets way too easy for certain reasons. Like, you know, maybe the augmentations get too strong. Maybe it gets way too hard, like unfairly difficult. Like, they don't know how to ratchet the difficulty up, so they just make really overly difficult sections that just become like not fun anymore. Maybe the level design just gets really sloppy, or it gets very simple, and it loses that very like open-ended thing that was really cool about the initial levels in the game. And I have to say, it doesn't really do that. It doesn't really do any of that. The game has a very consistent quality throughout. For being... Now, for reference, I dumped... what is my final playtime? 38.4 hours into this game. Yeah. 38... So, close to 40 hours. And I have to say, like, for the most part, it's really good. There was not a section, really, where I said, this is stupid, this is bad. There wasn't really a part in there, not in the middle, not even near the end. I thought it was really good the whole way through. The encounters continue to be designed in a way that, like, they do get more difficult, right? There are just situations where it's like, if you want to go for this, it's going to be really tough. You got to really think outside the box. And I enjoyed that. I actually liked, like, there was stuff that I learned about the game, like, I didn't know until, like, the last, what is it, 2 missions? I don't really want to spoil very much. Deus Ex, I forget which one, I forget which one is, the one in the... I don't want to say what I'm typing again, just to... Yeah, until the 12th mission. That you could, like, shoot darts at walls to distract enemies. I didn't even know that. That's crazy. It almost makes me want to go back and play the whole game again with that in mind. Because I was, like, trying to use, like, the tranquilizer darts, and I just, like, ugh, I'm like, this weapon sucks. And then, like, I was like, I'm like, there has to be some way, like, is this just bad, or am I missing something? And then someone pointed out in, like, a thread, they're like, you can shoot the walls with the tranquilizer darts, or any of the darts, in fact, that come from that you use with the mini crossbow, and you can, like, shoot a wall, and it'll, it can, like, get a guard's attention because of the noise, because unlike a gun, it will make a noise, unlike the silencer. So if you use, like an unsilenced pistol, enemies will immediately be alerted to where you are because of the sound. If you use a silenced pistol, from what I believe, it doesn't make any sound at all. But if you use the darts, it won't make a sound from where you are, but it will make a sound where it impacts. So you'll make a sound from the wall, and then you can, like, move, because there's this one section where I'm walking up these stairs, and there's a guard just looking straight in my direction. There is no cover, there's nothing. So I'm like, okay, so you got to take out the crossbow, shoot at the wall, and just get him to look over there, and then you can successfully sneak by. I'm like, that's so cool. You know, there's a bunch of other things, you know, throwing items to distract enemies. There's kind of like ways to manipulate their behavior. And then on top of the way that the levels are designed, the levels, like, continue to be designed in a way where you can approach them from, like, a bunch of different angles. Some of them more difficult, but one thing that I noticed is that a lot of them seem to be designed in this way where there'll be, like, 2 main paths, and one of the paths has, like, 2 additional ways to get through it. So it feels like this very... Maybe that applies to, like, you know, the other path, because I only picked one path throughout, you know, my playthrough. Because I only played the missions once. But maybe that's, like, maybe that's, what would you call it? Maybe each path has, like, multiple, like, sub ways of getting through it, if you will. It's really good. It is long, and there was a point... Yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to, like, come up with my final thoughts. Gameplay-wise, I'll talk about the gameplay. Gameplay-wise, I think it's great. It keeps up a super consistent, like, pretty high level of quality. There's a few parts in the middle where the design I won't say it gets worse, but it changes a bit. Where you're kind of in more open areas. And, like, more like, I would call them, like, cities. Where it's more like you're walking around as opposed to, here is, like, a location you need to infiltrate. And there's, again, all these different ways you can get in. The more open-ended segment, or the more open areas, it's like, okay, there's this big map with all these different locations in it. And there's one way to get into every location, but there's a bunch of different locations and optional things. So it'll be like, oh, you can, like, break into these shops. There's only one way to break into the shops. But, like, you have the option to break into any one that you want, if you'd like. If you have, like, you know, the picks and all that to get in. So it changes, I hope that makes sense. there's a few the sections where it shifts more towards like almost like an open world sort of feel, where it's like here's a bunch of like linear objectives that you can complete, as opposed to the more focused like missions, like on infiltrating a specific like big location, where it's like here is one location and it's very open-ended how you get through it. That was probably the part that I cared the least for, because I just care less for open world things in general. But it was still enjoyable, and I really enjoyed like the stealth aspect. The combat is kind of intentionally a little weak, unless you... Then again, I didn't really upgrade most of my combat skills. I pretty much just went for like hacking, lockpicking, computer use, stuff like that. Because that was what I found like helped me the most in the way that I was playing it. Like, it doesn't really make sense to go into like, you know, the flamethrowers and like rocket launchers and plasma guns and stuff like that, even though it's in there. It just did not fit my play style, so I never really used them. Maybe I'll play it another... It's definitely a game you can play like 5 times, 5 different ways, which I think is really cool. Another thing I appreciate, there are multiple endings in this game, and I guess I should talk about the story, which I guess this is like a spoiler point. There's multiple endings in the game. There's 3 different endings, and you only... With the ending you get depends on your actions in like the very last part of the game, like literally the last big area. That is the only part where you basically get to choose. You're given the choice, which I appreciated because it means that you can look them up. Sorry, you can go back and like redo it a couple times with like a save, and you don't have to replay the whole game. Excuse me. Anything else? The story is so funny to me because I wonder if I mentioned this on the last time I talked about it. It's basically the COVID conspiracy. Because again, we're at a spoiler point, so if you don't want to hear it, then just go to the end or whatever. It's basically the COVID conspiracy. There is a shadowy organization that has created a virus pandemic, and they have manufactured a vaccine that only works for a short period of time, and then they're giving it out to like basically picking and choosing who gets the vaccine under the guise that there is like a shortage of it, when in fact they're just giving it to like powerful politicians and things like that. So and they're doing it for the purpose of population control, which is so crazy to me. I'm like, ooh, this is very weird. This came out in 2000. It's very enrapturing, I have to say. It's a legitimately interesting, like, good, I would fit this into like a cyberpunk kind of genre, where it's like dark and dingy. The entire game takes place at night. There's like almost no daylight. And it definitely, the main like questions of the plot sort of revolve around the ultimate question is kind of like, what is is it better for like a secret conspiracy to rule the world if they're benevolent? Like, if they're malevolent, you gotta shut them down, but like, what if they're benevolent? Can you trust them? Like, can you do... So, like, you're basically given 3 choices at the end of the game. It's either, like, you can... So there's, like, this AI that can basically control the world, essentially. that the main villain is trying to integrate his consciousness with, trying to get plugged into the Matrix. So you can kill him and then join the Illuminati and then rule the world together with the Illuminati. You can... there's another character who offers you to kill him and nuke the entire facility, which has this whole thing that basically controls like all of the media in the world, which would shut down all communications. It would basically kill the internet, essentially. It would kill the internet and all remote communications. So, which would plunge the world into a dark age. It's literally called the New Dark Age ending. Or you can choose to integrate with the AI yourself and rule the world yourself. So it's kind of this like, okay, if they tell you that like the joining the Illuminati ending would basically revert to, they literally say like 20th century capitalism. If you were, so you basically have the choice between go back to something that is familiar to you in the present, like literally as you're playing it, go back to what we have now, kill everything, but it's better to just not have the world be connected, or rule the world yourself in the hopes that, you know, you are a good and benevolent ruler. I ended up choosing, just out of curiosity, I ended up choosing the one where you integrate into the AI, because I figured, like, excuse me. So my thinking was, if you go with the Illuminati and let the Illuminati rule, you, it might be fine for a while, but on the long term, it's so open to, like, corruption. Like, whenever you have, like, big power systems, they're always open to, like, corruption and someone coming in and co-opting it. Or, you know, eventually, the people who are currently in power are going to die, and then someone else is going to come in, and, you know, what are they going to be like? It seems good. It might seem good for a little while or in the immediate, but long term, it's very, in my opinion, I thought it was like really risky. That was my reasoning. The New Dark Age one is like, well, I think that would be worse for the world overall because of the how much of the world relies on technology and communications. So especially in like the future that this game takes place in, you'd probably end up killing like a lot of people, and I don't know if that's necessarily worth it just to make sure that, like, you know, one person isn't in control. I figured that the most benevolent option was to basically just become the god of the world. That was the one I went with, and it is like a slightly ominous ending. I don't think it's a perfect ending, because obviously, you know, maybe the main character is fallible, maybe merging with the AI changes his personality or something. But it is like, that was what I figured was the least catastrophic ending, basically. And who knows? There are sequels. I believe there's 3 sequels. Deus Ex. How many Deus Ex games are there, actually? I never even looked this up. Deus Ex games. Oh, there's like one... There's Deus Ex and Deus Ex Invisible War. Okay. From 2003. This is a great game. This was great. I really enjoyed it. I thought that it was... I don't know how many ways I can say that it's good. This is definitely a game that I can see someone playing this and being like, yeah, this is the game. This is my game now. Like this game definitely had a huge impact on a lot of people, and especially like a lot of the things that it sort of innovated. Like when it came out, people came up with a new genre for it called immersive sims. That was like, where I guess, you know, System Shock kind of fits into that, but it was like one of the first games that really tried to immerse you in the world and like give you realistic enough like sets of options to deal with like obstacles and things like that. It has this like insane, it's not even a blockbuster story. It's like a big miniseries, like a TV miniseries or something, if you wanted to adapt it. It's good. Go play it. Oh yeah, I should mention I did play it with the Deus Ex Transcended community patch, which fixes some bugs. And I wanted to mention something that bothered me. And this is a nitpick. This is a gripe. There's in like the last third of the game, this thing starts happening where how do I say this? You'll be like sneaking around, right? And there'll be some characters, like some guards sitting around or standing around or something. And once you get close enough, there's like a trigger for them to like start talking to each other. And when they do, they'll like one of them will like turn their head to take a look at the other one. And when they do that, they'll like see you. They'll spot you because their like cone of vision turns. So you're like, shit. So you have to like figure out like how to get close enough that you trigger the conversation to hear what they're going to say, but are at an angle where they don't see you when they turn their head to speak, which is a little annoying. The other kind of annoying thing is there's a lot of sections where there's a lot of moments where you approach an NPC and there's basically a forced conversation. And some of those happen in locations where there are like guards roaming, and you will successfully sneak past a guard, get close enough to have a conversation with this person, and then the guard's behavior is not paused. They continue walking, and then they will see you having your conversation. Like, I don't think they'll attack you until you're out of the conversation, but like the camera will like reverse shot, and then when it shows like one of the shots, you'll see like the guard in the background ready to fire at you the moment the conversation ends. And I'm like, you couldn't have like paused the guards walking around just for like the dialogue. It's whatever. I played with Transcended. It worked pretty well. The game crashed on me a few times, but it was not at critical points. It was mostly in like level transitions where it auto-saves anyway, or places that were pretty safe. So it wasn't like catastrophic where I lost like a bunch of saved progress, or where I lost any progress. I was also saving very often. You should save very often in this game. It's good. Go play it. Deus Ex is good. My throat's getting really tired, and I kind of want to talk to someone today. So I'm going to go rest that. Goodbye. Oh, wait. I should if you've been watching this far, thank you so much for watching. If you have a question, leave it in the comments below, and I will definitely get to it next time. But please phrase it in the form of a question, because I don't just want to read your thoughts out loud. Yeah, have a good one. Goodbye.